You're anxiously attached in your romantic relationships, checking your phone constantly, needing reassurance, analyzing every text. But with your kids, you feel overwhelmed by their emotional needs, pull away when they want closeness, and find yourself prioritizing your partner's feelings over theirs.
This isn't necessarily about being a bad parent. It's about how your attachment system can show up completely differently from relationship to relationship. You can be anxious with your romantic partner while being avoidant with your children. And this pattern is more common than you think.
If you've ever felt guilty about how much emotional energy goes into your romantic relationships while your kids get what's left over, this video will help you understand why this happens and how to change it.
Hi, we're Joel and Tehrina Terry.
We're licensed therapists here to help you heal from anxious attachment, stop chasing unavailable love, and build the secure relationships and community you deserve.
This is part 2 of our parenting and attachment series. And today we're responding directly to Laura's request about parents who are anxious in love but avoidant in parenting. A pattern she shared feeling gets left out of the conversation way too much.
And Laura, you're absolutely right. This dynamic is incredibly impactful and deserves attention. So thank you for bringing this important topic to our community.
Before we dive in, we want to reassure you that if you're watching this video, it means you have the insight to recognize these patterns and the care to want to do better. We often have clients who tell us they're afraid to have children because they're worried about emotionally harming their children the way their parents did.
And we tell them the very fact that you're here, talking about it, identifying the dysfunction, choosing to learn how to be different in relationships. That awareness and emotional intelligence is exactly what breaks generational patterns. The parents who harm their children are typically the ones who never question their behavior or seek to understand the impact.
By the end of this video, you'll understand why this anxious in love, avoidant in parenting pattern happens, recognize the specific ways it shows up, learn how it impacts children, and most importantly, get concrete steps to change this pattern and heal the relationship with your kids, because it's never too late to repair and do better. We've also created a free guide to support you, which we'll be sharing more about later, so make sure to stick around for that.
So why is it someone can be anxiously attached in romantic relationships while avoidantly attached in parenting? It comes down to where your nervous system learned that love and safety exist.
If your childhood taught you that romantic relationships were where emotional energy and attention went, maybe because your parents prioritized their relationship dramas over your needs, your nervous system learned that romantic love is where you fight for connection and security.
And if you're already using all of your emotional energy trying to maintain your romantic relationships, your children's needs can feel overwhelming. Their emotions, need for attention, and demands for your presence can trigger your avoidant system because it feels like too much when you're already emotionally depleted.
There's also something called emotional parentification that often creates this pattern. If you were the child who had to manage your parents' emotions about their relationship, you learned that your job was to be the emotional caretaker for adults, not to have your own needs met.
So now as a parent, when your child has big emotions or needs comfort, it can trigger that same overwhelmed feeling you had as a child, like you're responsible for managing everyone's emotions, but no one's taking care of yours.
In IFS terms, you might have a part that learned to be hypervigilant about romantic relationships because that's where love felt most fragile and most important to secure. But you also have parts that learn to shut down around children's needs because children's needs weren't prioritized in the family system.
If you know someone who might be caught in this pattern, maybe a friend who seems to prioritize their romantic relationships over their children's emotional needs, gently sharing this video might help them recognize what's happening without judgment.
Let's get specific about what this pattern looks like in daily life, because sometimes these behaviors are so normalized that we don't recognize them as problematic. You might find yourself immediately available when your partner calls or texts, but when your child wants to share something important, you say, "Not now, I'm too busy." Or you drop everything to comfort your partner when they're upset, but when your child is crying, you feel irritated or overwhelmed.
Or maybe you spend hours analyzing your relationship, talking to friends about your partner, or reading about how to improve your romantic connection. But you feel impatient when your child wants to process their day or needs help with their emotions.
Another common pattern is making family plans around your romantic relationship, canceling time with your kids when your partner is available, or being physically present with your children but emotionally unavailable because you're worried about your romantic relationship.
Let me share how this played out in my childhood. My mother was a single mom who was very focused on dating. She had many different boyfriends in and out of our home over the years. And when my sister and I were in high school, I was around 14 and my sister around 15. My mom had a blind date that one of her friends set her up on. So this was the 1980s, which means no cell phones to keep in touch. Our mother went out on this blind date on a Friday night, and Saturday when we woke up, she wasn't home. Now, based on our past trauma where our mother was physically assaulted and hospitalized for 3 months, we were extremely activated and worried. My sister tried to reach our mother's friend who set up the date, but we couldn't get a hold of her. So then my sister called every hospital emergency room in the area to see if our mother had been admitted. When we finally heard back from my mom's friend, she said something to the effect of, "You two need to give your mom some space. She's a single mom and you need to let her live her life a little." This was laughable given how focused our mother had been on men our whole childhood and how much my sister and I had raised ourselves. But it perfectly illustrates this pattern. Our mother's anxiety about romantic connection was so consuming that our legitimate safety concerns were dismissed as us being too needy. And here's the thing about patterns. We don't know what we don't know. When I first started working as a therapist, we were having a team meeting consulting about different cases when a therapist shared that one of her clients was leaving their children home from around 3 p.m. when they got home from school until she got home from work around 6 p.m. And the therapist was wondering if she needed to call CPS. There was a resounding yes from the team, but I didn't understand. The kids were like 8 and 9 years old, as I recall, and they were only home alone for a couple of hours. It was before dinner, before dark, before bedtime. So I asked about it and learned that kids under 10 generally shouldn't be left alone at all. That was so surprising to me because my sister and I were latchkey kids. Before my mother's assault, she worked from 3 to 11 p.m. and we were alone during that time to do our homework, chores, make dinner, put ourselves to bed, all before she got home from work. In the morning, she was still asleep when we got up and we'd ride the city bus to school. This was from the time I was 9 and my sister was like around 11. So before sitting in this team meeting at the age of 40, I didn't even think anything about it.
While work demands created this situation, it shows how children can end up with responsibilities and independence beyond what's developmentally appropriate. And when parents are also emotionally preoccupied with romantic relationships on top of other stressors, children's needs can become even more invisible.
And this just illustrates how we normalize what we experienced, even if it wasn't actually healthy or age appropriate for us as children.
Now let's talk about how this pattern affects children, because understanding the impact can motivate change in ways that nothing else can.
Children whose parents are anxious in love but avoidant in parenting often develop what we call emotional invisibility. They learn that their feelings, needs, and experiences matter less than the adult's romantic relationships.
And these children often become hyper-independent because they learn early that their emotional needs won't be consistently met. They might stop asking for comfort, stop sharing their problems, or learn to manage their own emotions without support.
As a result of my mother's pattern, both my sister and I developed very anxious attachment styles that we've had to work through. But our anxiety wasn't typical. It wasn't fear that a partner would leave us or cheat. Because of the trauma of our mother being assaulted and almost dying, our anxiety is that our partners are going to die. So if we don't hear from them or there isn't predictable communication, our minds go to, they're lying in a ditch somewhere dead. This shows how children's attachment systems adapt specifically to what felt most threatening in their environment.
And children in these families also often develop something called emotional parentification. They become the stable, regulated presence in the family while the parent is emotionally consumed by romantic drama. They might find themselves comforting their parent about relationship problems, managing younger siblings' emotions, or becoming the easy child who never causes problems because they can see that their parents are already overwhelmed.
This pattern of prioritizing romantic relationships over children is so common. So now let's talk about breaking this pattern because it takes real awareness and practice. And if you're committed to making this change in your family, let us know by giving this video a like. It helps other parents who need to see this content find it.
The good news is that once you recognize this pattern, you can change it. Here are concrete steps to start shifting your attachment energy.
First, notice when you're emotionally available versus emotionally depleted. Start tracking. When your child needs attention or comfort, what's your internal response? Are you present and regulated, or are you thinking about your romantic relationship?
Create what we call protected child time, specific periods where your romantic relationship concerns are off limits. This might mean putting your phone away during homework time, or having a rule that relationship discussions with your partner happen after the kids are in bed, but only if you can have these conversations without yelling or getting heated. If you don't know how to navigate difficult conversations without escalating, we've created 3 videos to help, and we'll link them in the description box below. We also encourage you to find a therapist who can help you learn these skills and provide a safe space for these discussions.
Practice responding to your child's emotion with the same urgency that you'd give to your partner's emotions. So if your child's upset and you notice the impulse to say, "Not now," pause and ask, "What would I do if this was my partner having the same feeling?"
Work on identifying which parts of you get activated around your children's needs. Maybe there's a part that feels overwhelmed by emotional demands, or a part of you that believes your romantic relationship is more fragile and needs more protection than your relationship with your children.
Start practicing what we call emotional democracy in your family, where everyone's feelings matter equally, not just the adults. This might mean saying to your child, "I can see you're upset. Let me finish this text, and then I want to hear what happened."
And here's a big one. Start talking to your children about emotions the way you would with a partner. Instead of dismissing or minimizing their feelings, practice curiosity. "Tell me more about what that felt like," or "That sounds really hard." The same responses you give to someone you're trying to stay connected with.
If you're ready to start shifting this pattern in your family, we've created something specifically for you. Download our free Breaking the Pattern guide. It includes all 6 practical steps we just discussed, but expanded with specific examples and language you can use starting today.
You'll also get age-specific repair conversation templates to use with your children from ages 4 through adulthood, a 4-week tracking sheet to monitor your progress, and IFS exercises to help you understand which parts of you get activated around your children's needs versus your romantic relationship needs. This isn't generic parenting advice. It's a complete toolkit designed specifically for parents who are anxious in love but avoidant in parenting. The link's in the description.
If you're recognizing yourself in this pattern, the most important thing to know is that it's never too late to repair and rebuild your relationship with your children.
Children are incredibly resilient, and they're constantly updating their understanding of relationships based on new experiences. When you start showing up differently, they'll notice and respond.
This might involve some repair conversations. With younger children, this could sound like, "I've been thinking about how I haven't always been as available to you as I should be. I want you to know that your feelings are really important to me, and I'm working on being more present."
Or with older children or adult children, you could say, "I'm realizing that I spent a lot of energy focused on my romantic relationships when you were growing up. And I think that made you feel like your needs weren't as important. That wasn't fair to you, and I'm sorry."
Remember Brené Brown's distinction between guilt and shame. Guilt says, "I did something wrong, and now that I know, I can choose to do better." Shame says, "I am something wrong." Guilt motivates change, but shame just keeps you stuck.
The healing happens through consistency over time. Your children need to see that this change is real and lasting, not just a temporary shift that will disappear when your next romantic crisis happens.
What's one way you want to start showing up differently for your children? Share in the comments. Your commitment might inspire another parent who's working on this same pattern.
Research by Dr. Philip Shaver shows that people can have different attachment styles in different relationships, what researchers call relationship-specific attachment. You might be anxiously attached to your romantic partner while being avoidantly attached to your children. Studies by Dr. Cindy Hazan demonstrate that our attachment systems prioritize relationships based on where we learned love was most scarce or most important for survival. If childhood taught you that parental attention went to romantic relationships, your nervous system may still be programmed to see romantic love as the primary source of security. Dr. Patricia Crittenden's research on family systems shows that children adapt their attachment strategies based on where emotional resources are allocated in the family. When parents are emotionally preoccupied with romantic relationships, children often develop compulsive self-reliance to avoid burdening the system. Research by Dr. Alan Shore on emotional regulation reveals that children's nervous systems co-regulate with their primary caregivers. When parents are chronically dysregulated due to romantic relationship anxiety, children often develop either anxious or avoidant strategies to manage the unpredictable emotional environment. Most importantly, studies on attachment repair show that children's attachment patterns can be positively changed at any age through consistent, attuned responses from caregivers who have done their own healing work.
So let's get to the heart of it. Your children didn't ask to be born, and they have no choice about who raises them. They're completely dependent on you for their emotional safety and security, not just what's left over after your romantic relationship needs are met. This doesn't mean you can't have a fulfilling romantic life or that your partner's needs don't matter. It means creating balance where your children's emotional needs are given the same priority as your romantic relationship needs. If you grew up in a family where children's needs always came last, breaking this pattern is one of the most radical acts of love you can offer your children. You're literally rewiring what love looks like in your family system. And please hear this. Recognizing this pattern doesn't make you a terrible parent. It makes you a parent who's willing to look honestly at their behavior and make changes. That willingness to grow and repair is exactly what earned secure attachment looks like. Your children don't need you to be perfect. None of us are, and that's a losing battle. What they do need is for you to be present, to prioritize their emotional safety along with yours, and to show them through your actions that they matter as much as any other relationship in your life. The most healing thing that you can tell your child through your words and your actions is, you matter, your feelings matter, you are not too much, and you are enough. This is how generational patterns change, not through perfection, but through presence and the courage to do better once you know better.
In part 3 of this series, we're diving into what secure parenting actually looks like in practice, moving beyond therapy speak to give you concrete examples of how to validate emotions, set boundaries, and respond to your children's needs without losing yourself.
Up next, check out our video on how your attachment style affects your friendships, which is where Laura first made the request for this video. It might give you more insight into how your attachment patterns show up across different relationships.
Subscribe and take care of your heart. And remember, you're not alone. We're all in this
Together.